Good afternoon, everyone. This is the press conference for North Carolina as we preview tomorrow's second-round game between UNC and Maryland and the 2026 NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Tournament. As a courtesy to everyone, please silence your cell phones. Please provide your name and media affiliation each time you ask a question during today's press conference. If you are joining us on Zoom, please use the raise hand function for questions. We will address questions in the room first and get to Zoom if time allows. Recording press conferences on cell phones or cameras is prohibited. We have with us here on stage student athletes Elena Arnesalo and Lainey Grant. We'll go ahead and open the floor for questions for the student athletes. We'll start with Ariel here in the front.
Hey, Ariel Bonham with Tar Heel Tribune. Hey, Lainey, obviously the last month or so, you've been the focal point of other defenses. You've been face guarded. What are the adjustments that you've had to make, and what has the team done to help you get through that and still be effective as you have been?
Yeah, I think it's just a testament to the great guards and great teammates that I have around me that they're able to work with me through that. I think that especially in the latter part of the season, we've kind of used that as a weapon, putting me in specific spots to make it difficult for the defense to either tag or to rotate, but just a testament to my teammates and the coaching staff. Individually, just moving more off the ball, finding windows, just being shot ready, knowing that my windows to shoot the ball are going to be a little bit shorter because they're keyed into my shot. So just staying shot ready.
TJ French, USA Today. For you, Elena, I know you're one of the players with a lot of experience in this tournament. Just kind of what experiences do you have, from your time last year at UCLA, and then what have been the messages to your teammates in these later rounds of the tournament?
Yeah, obviously last year I made it to the Final Four. Thought a lot individually and what we need to do as a team. So we've been emphasizing togetherness, just being connected, whatever it is, enjoying every single moment off the court, enjoying ourselves, but when we're on the court, being just like super locked in and present. So I think that's just something we're really focusing on, staying together.
For both of you, can you talk about the evolution of the backcourt chemistry since December, when there were a few bumps in the road till the last few weeks, and what's been the difference?
And Lainey, can you start us off with that, and then Lainey?
Yeah, for sure. It's always fun playing with E. She's an amazing player. She does a great job handling the ball and getting our team ready to attack specific matchups and personnel. But me and E work out together every single day, so we're on the court constantly. We're constantly in each other's ears, picking each other up, pushing each other. So I think it's just a testament to our relationship and the relationship that we have with our teammates.
Yeah, well, exactly what she said. Like, on the court, we're a little bit different players. She can shoot really well, so it opens up different things for other guards. Just working out every day with her. It's been a lot of fun being on the court and just showing what we can do.
And the News and Observer. There's a lot of old-timers in here that still think of Maryland as an ACC school. You guys are pretty young. Where do you fall in understanding the history of Maryland, North Carolina, and does it mean anything to you? When did you kind of realize it?
Elena, if you want to start us off, and then Lainey afterwards.
To be honest, I didn't even know Maryland was an ACC school. I'm also from Finland, so didn't watch college sports my whole life. So, yeah, pretty new to it.
I think that in the back of my mind I did know, but I hadn't really thought about it up until this moment that Maryland did used to be an ACC team. So it's kind of cool that it came around full circle like that.
The other side of that is, there's so many more transfers now than there used to be. How have you adapted to learning about these new rivalry games?
Obviously UNC Duke rivalry is so big, so I already knew about that before even coming here and stepping foot on campus. Obviously the NC State rivalry too, so it's just been great being a part of those big rivalries and seeing what it's like on the East Coast, and obviously it's the biggest rivalry in college sports, so it's just been incredible.
Reminder to the media to please enter to provide your name and media affiliation before each question.
TJ French, USA Today. For you, Elena, you've nearly doubled your scoring this season, and your three-point percentage has seen a big increase. Just what is it like playing in Coach Banghart's system, and how has that like allowed you to be so successful this year?
Um, I think just putting in the individual work, our whole staff is incredible. So getting my confidence up in that, getting obviously my shooting percentage is higher when I'm working out every day, extra shots or whatever it is. Obviously playing for CB, she wants me to be aggressive, do my thing, show my strengths. So that obviously allows me to do it on offense, and my teammates allow me to do my thing, and they really push me to, take shots, be aggressive, whatever it is the team needs me to do.
Ariel Bonham, Tar Heel Tribune. Elena, Coach Banghart has talked about how you're such a nice person, and she wants you to be meaner on the court. What have those conversations been like, and has that changed your mentality on the court?
Yeah, I guess I am a nice person off the court. I hope I'm also a nice person on the court, but I think I've always been competitive, but it's shown in different ways. I'm not the trash talker on the court, or I've just kind of learned to celebrate my own scores too in the last couple of games. So I think it's just showing emotion on the court. That's one of the things, and just being aggressive and more physical, all those things, but just showing the emotion and the competitiveness that I have in myself.
Any other questions for student athletes? Back here to Ariel in front.
So Ariel Bonham, Tar Heel Tribune. So you made it to the Final Four last year, and you've got that NCAA experience. What have you been able to share those experiences with your teammates? And also, you were part of a blowout win at Maryland last year, so you've obviously seen Maryland before.
Yeah, obviously being at the Final Four taught a lot to our whole team at UCLA last year and individually. So what I've talked with our team, just being together, enjoying every single moment, being present, and just locking in. It's March. You got to do every little detail the right way. You got to focus on everything. There's no missed possessions. We just got to be together in it all the way.
Obviously, you'll see a guard you saw a few times last season, including the Sweet 16. What are the challenges that she's going to bring, and just the overall challenges Maryland will bring for you?
Yeah, obviously we're pretty familiar with her since she transferred from our conference to Maryland. But she's a dynamic player. We know that going in. So she's had a great season thus far, and we're just going to be keyed into trying to limit her, trying to limit what she likes to do. But I'm excited for the matchup.
Any other questions for the student athletes? All right, perfect. Thanks so much. We appreciate it, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
So we got 11 minutes. They want us to start exactly at 1:45.
Oh,
so
okay.
We can just hang, or if you want to get a drink of water or
Yeah, I'm
anything
going
like
to
that.
get my
Yeah.
phone and watch Hoop.
Exactly at 1:45. All right, good afternoon again, everyone. We're now joined on stage by UNC head coach Courtney Bankart. We'll take questions for Coach, so if you want to raise your hand and start us off.
Bob Sutton with the Associated Press. Courtney, yesterday you mentioned, I think, the Final Four 20 years ago, and were you at that game?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, what do you recall about that? And
I was a young assistant from the Northeast. I was an assistant at Dartmouth at the time, and so I was still figuring out, as a graduate student, I was still figuring out if coaching was going to be a vocation for me or whatnot. And, that was old school ACC, and it was it hasn't been in Boston since. That was kind of fun for me to have a lot of friends in Boston too. So I just remember the energy around women's basketball and in a league that I knew and in an area that I knew really well. It was, it was part of why I wanted to get into the business.
Carter Braun, USA Today. Coach, having a guard like Alina Arnisalo, what has her experience in past March Madness runs meant to this one this year?
I don't know. I think E's really grown up a lot. I think I think the undertold story of the recruiting, of the transfer process, is that you have to learn a whole new language. You have to learn a whole new system and standard and expectation. And so she spent some time adjusting to that, right? And at UCLA, she wasn't asked to do as much as we're asking her to do, right? She was kind of feed Lauren vets, right? And so they had that kind of big post in the middle of the floor, and they were running a lot of kind of actions for her, whereas we want her to be more aggressive. I trust her with the ball in her hands, and I know she can be a hard matchup, and she's got great vision. And so, as a player, her role is different, right? And in terms of the NCAA tournament, her role is different. Like we're relying on her more than they were, right? So, obviously Nyla Harris played in an Elite Eight, right? India's hosted before. So I think they're kind of, the neat thing about college athletics is that every year there's a lot of difference, even before the transfer portal. Every year is a little different, right? And so I think it's as much, actually more so about where this team and what the stuff they've been through and who they are as a unit, more so maybe than the experiences they've had before it.
Courtney, Ariel Bonham, Tar Heel Tribune. As to, like, I asked Elena about your conversations with her, wanting her to be meaner. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah.
And have you seen a transformation from her during the season of being maybe a little meaner on the court, more aggressive?
Yeah, I think she worded it really well. I think I've had really high standards for Elena. I knew how good she could be. I recruited her hard out of Europe, and out of the portal, recruiting her hard and making sure she knew that we're going to play to your strengths. And part of that is going to be we're going to figure it out as we go because you're such a creative and talented player. And then she got here, and again, the language is a thing. It's not her first language, right? And so she might know exactly what she's trying to say and in our play call, but has a second to have it register on how to say it in English, right? And so I think there was some delay, and then also still learning the holistic part of our program in terms of what our people's strengths were, and yet I keep imploring her to be aggressive, right? So it took time, and then I wanted her to, I think teams take on the personality of their leaders, both their coaching staff and of their best players, and I just wanted her to be able to show how competitive she is more outwardly, right? I wanted her to play with more passion because that helps the rest of the team feel more connected to what she's doing. And so I think you're starting to see, even yesterday when she hit that shot and got fouled, you got to see that kind of flex, right? That means a lot from a kid that is more gentle by nature. So her and I relationship has been really strong. I've absolutely loved coaching her. I think she has really enjoyed being here, and her maturation as a player I have great pride in, and also just great excitement for, because I think she's only scratching the surface still of how good she can be.
Carter Braun, USA Today. I've gotten to talk with some of the girls this week about the Blue Ballers account on TikTok. And Jordan said you're a fan. Are you a follower? Do you support it?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that page?
Yeah, I don't. If I follow it, would be. I think I do. I'm not as good at TikTok as our players are. But in this day and age, branding is an important thing, and the more audience you can bring to their accounts, the more they can bring in true NIL value, right? So I do have a TikTok account off the court for all of you followers out there, in part because my following helps them in their own way, right? And so they started this Blue Baller account that kind of doesn't have to go through the university formalities, and so they really do get to show their personalities and the way that it works. And I don't know how many followers they have. I think we'd all be surprised at how many and how much viewership they have. I know our recruits are commenting sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh. So the fact that we don't get to okay the content is always scary. But you know, they're fun-hearted and they're them. So I don't know how to answer that besides anything that helps them get true NIL, I'm all in for.
Tom Shanahan, News and Observer. Brenda talked earlier about coming back to North Carolina from her Maryland days.
Yeah.
And you heard me ask the players. They don't really understand it. Do you bring it up? Is it important at all or not a factor or what?
No, I don't think. You know, I think they know they have to beat. Sort of like when we talk about conference realignments, you know, when people ask, how do you feel about it, right? I feel about that the people that are paid to make that decision better make the right one, whatever that is, right? I have to beat whoever's on my schedule, whether they're in the ACC or the Big Ten or the SEC or the Big 12 or the Ohio Valley. It doesn't matter, right? And so, no, I don't. I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes these kids are so focused on what's ahead and on themselves that they don't. The history just is a little bit lost on them. And I think for them, it's about who we are right now and who we have to beat right in front of us.
TJ French, USA Today. Just kind of a piggyback on the Elena answer. She mentioned togetherness and playing together, being together. She kind of talked to me a little bit about it in the locker room. Just what does that mean in the program, and how do you see the players playing together, acting together, and just being together as a team?
Yeah. I hope we recruit it, but I think sometimes you have to get lucky, right? I think these guys are really connected. They care so much about the Carolina across their chest that they're less concerned with their own individual this, that, or the other thing. They really do celebrate each other's success, you know? And so I think we emphasize it and celebrate it in the right way, but they've really bought into it. I also think when you watch us play, right, there's an element of resilience that we've had to show this year. I mean, we lost 3 of our first 5 ACC games. It's not a great start, right, which basically means you had to win every single game you played for the next 2 months, right, and they just were resilient through that. And then the connectiveness that they showed after we lost to Notre Dame, the practice was no different than it was if we had won. You know, these guys just continually lean into the process because they're connected to the mission, not just when things go well. We always say when you set goals, you set them irregardless of obstacle, right? And there were some obstacles that this particular team had to get through, and they stayed connected, both as an individual on their journey and then as a group. So you see it in how they play, how they celebrate each other, how they lift each other up. You can see it in their answers. You know, I think that's what's another thing that's great about March Madness is you put a microphone in front of them, and you have really talented reporters who know kind of how to ask a question that could get at the truth, and they shine, right? That's you can't really prepare for the questions you guys might ask them, but you can tell that they care about their resilience and their connectedness, both in how they play and how they prepare.
Bottom Tar Heel Tribune. Can you talk about the evolution of Laney's game from becoming a player that other teams are putting a lot of focus on to having to deal with that, and what adjustments has she made since then, and what has the team kind of done to help her through that?
Yeah, I love talking about Laney because we have to remember last year when she skipped her senior year of high school to join our program, she was playing on a team that had so many fifth-year seniors, and she was 18. So that's a huge age gap, 22-year-olds and 18-year-olds in a locker room where she hadn't yet, you know, lived away from home. And she's not only living away from home, but she had an important role on last year's team as such a young player. And then wanted to take we call it Laney 2.0. Like, you don't get to go to your second year here and not get better, right? You have to get better in order for this really to work. And so she went from being kind of a shooter to now a scorer. She went from being a team defender to a lockdown individual defender as well, right? So she's just made incredible progress where she's reliable. I think she led us in minutes this year. I'm not sure, but it feels like it because she is so reliable on both ends of the floor. And then when teams really key on her, which they started to do, as you know, partway through the ACC season, almost halfway through, we were able to use her in ways that got everybody else layups, as you probably remember from the Virginia Tech ACC tournament game or in the Virginia game on the road. Like, if you're going to defend Laney a certain way, then we're going to get something else. Just like if you're going to defend Elena a certain way or you're going to defend our post a certain way. They were really, last night, they were really really collapsing and protecting the paint, right? So they really were concerned about our interior game, and we shot up 43s, right? Like we're gonna take what the defense gives us, and we're gonna make them wrong. Basically, that's our goal. And so part of that is how they deal with Lainey. And she's just stayed. She watched a ton of film. We've already watched a lot of film this morning, and she's stayed a student of the game, but she's never lost the confidence on who she is. She's believed in herself from the very beginning. She's believed in me from the very beginning. I obviously offered her when she hadn't even entered high school yet. So I believed in her early on, and she just proves me right every single day. And so I look forward to her continually progressing. I think Lainey 3.0 will be even better.
Bob Sutton with the Associated Press. Both UNC and Maryland yesterday had pretty sizable rebounding advantages, and so how do you see that aspect of the game playing out tomorrow and the importance of it?
I would love to say that we're going to have a very sizable rebounding advantage against Maryland. I don't know if that's the case. These guys are elite on the glass. Partly is that as they put a lot of pressure on the rim off the dribble, and so when they do that, you're forced into pursuit rebounding at times, maybe not as much positional. So we've got to handle that problem. We also, they've got hungry rebounders, right? Like they've got guys that are really, they pride themselves on that first, second, and third step and their first, second, and third jump, right? And so if we area rebound instead of pursuit and contact rebound, it's not going to go well for either team because we're a problem on the glass as well. And so that's what you get when you're down to the round of 32, a physicality and an identity that is laced with toughness, right? There's just not a lot of just pretty teams. There's pretty and gritty at this point, right? And there's a grittiness factor to tomorrow's game that both teams have to bring on the glass. And you know, we're both, I'm sure we're both imploring it, talking about it, adjusting for it, but there's an element of when that ball gets tipped, we got to get to the glass, both sides.
Carter Braun, USA Today. You're slotted for the noon game tomorrow. Would this be your ideal timing for a basketball game, or would you like it a little bit later in the day?
I like any game time that we win, quite frankly. We had a lot of noon tips this year. You know, I think I don't know if our students will be back in time for that, so that's a bit of a bummer. Also, I know there's a lot of youth sports. My own children have them as well. But, you know, so maybe if it was a little bit later, that might help the crowd a little bit. I'm not sure. But you're also, especially at this time, the later the game is, the more you're just kind of watching basketball all day. You get kind of like drunk watching basketball. Then you're like, oh, God, we have to play, right? So there's something about a noon tip, which then every game after us, they're talking about the teams that have already stamped their card into the Sweet 16, right? And so I started this morning with breakfast that like, hey, we could be the first team to stamp our spot into the Sweet 16, you know? And so if we win the game, it was the perfect time.
Tar Heel Tribune. Okinawa, obviously, you've seen her a lot, and she was a big reason that Duke won in the Sweet 16 last year. What are the challenges that she gives you?
Her motor. Aluchi's is an easy kid to root for because a lot of what she does is just sheer toughness, resilience, and motor. A lot like Alyssa Usby. You know, there's a lot of Alyssa in her and her relentlessness, right? You know, sometimes people think that that's just something everybody can do. It's a skill. Like, so where she might lack skill in certain other areas, she has an elite skill in how she competes, right? And it's hard to guard that. It's hard to guard somebody that winning plays, offensive rebounds, you know, creating free throw attempts, getting out in transition, some of these things that, you know, you'll show a clip of somebody else and she just finds her way into the clip. And you're like, you're not supposed to be in this one. I'm working on this, right? She's just a kid that is, you have to account for because of her skill, which is her motor and her resilience and her toughness and her relentlessness. And so, yeah, that's an absolutely huge part of her game. It was a huge part of her game in the ACC. It's a huge part of her game in the Big Ten. And relentlessness travels across school lines, apparently. So, yeah, we have great respect for her and easy to root for her. We've had a kid just like her on our roster, and we know how much that brings to your team.
Time for maybe one more question if anyone wants to close this out.
What kind of, Tar Heel Tribune, what kind of game do you expect as far as pace? And does Maryland remind you of any teams you've played this season in that regard?
You know, like the Big Ten and the ACC, they've had to play lots of different ways, right? They've had to play against the press of Ohio State. They've had to play against kind of a more how Michigan State plays versus how Oregon plays versus how Michigan plays with their guard play, and they've got bigger guard. I mean, they've played a variety of ways, just like if you watch us play Virginia Tech, Duke, thinking of who we've played recently, Louisville, right? Like we've had to play a little bit different ways too. And so there's an element of what are their strengths and what are our strengths, but there's also an element of that when that ball is tipped, there's going to be some adjustments that both sides have to make, right? And so they're like a lot of teams we've played because they're deep in terms of they've got all of their guys are dangerous. Like there's not a guy you can just not worry about. But they play both sides of the ball, and obviously I think we do as well. So I think it's more just there's not one team that they look like. It's kind of a collection of teams that we've had to deal with, whether that's they can throw a little bit of switching man-to-man and fronting the post, or they can get in some flat coverage, or they can extend the floor, or they can so we kind of takes bits and pieces of our journey to sort of in the prep mode, and that's what you expect from good teams. There's very few teams in the country that just this is what we do no matter who we play, right? And I think everyone else we just have to continually play to our strengths and find ways to pick on the other team's weaknesses, and they don't always match up each possession, so you have to do it kind of holistically. So kind of a long way of saying, there's not one way to beat Maryland. There's not one way to beat Carolina. And we have to continually, possession by possession, win one possession at a time. And so do they.
Coach, thanks so much for the time, and good luck tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.
Hammond Communications will post a recording of this press conference in the NCAA.
so we'll start exactly at 2:15, and then if they ask the question for either of the players, I'll pick one of you to start, and then the other can go.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is the press conference for Maryland as we preview tomorrow's second round game between UNC and Maryland and the 2026 NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Tournament. As a courtesy to everyone, please silence your cell phones. Please provide your name and media affiliation each time you ask a question during today's press conference. If you are joining us on Zoom, please use the raise hand function for questions. We'll address questions in the room first and then get to Zoom if time allows. Recording press conferences on cell phones or cameras is prohibited. We have with us here on stage student athletes Addie Mack and Oluchi Okanawa. We'll go ahead and open the floor for questions for the student athletes.
Brady Ruth, Terps. Addie, we've talked a couple times this season about how this team is so versatile and has so many different players can lead in scoring in any given night. How much fun is it to be on a team like that where, in any given night someone can step up, whether freshman, senior, whoever it may be?
It's so much fun. I think just, having that ability to be so versatile and to know that any single person on the court is such a threat, I think that's something that makes us really special. And I think like you saw in the game yesterday, everyone stepping up at different times, everyone playing to their strengths. It's really beautiful and really fun to play in.
Carter Braun, USA Today. For both of you guys, playing under a coach like Brenda Fries, who's made 16 straight tournaments, what does that do to you guys, and what words of advice does she have for you guys in the locker room going into a game like tomorrow where it's win or go home?
Oluchi, can you start us off, and then Addie?
Yeah, she's one of the reasons why we came to play for Maryland, and her experience is just so evident, and honestly the way that she's able to just stay level-headed and calm and collected, really her and the whole coaching staff, because they've done this before, they've been here before, so it's really just important for us to follow whatever it is that they have planned out for us.
I would say the same. I think just knowing that you have a coach with that much experience, and obviously we have Coach B is great, we have a great coaching staff. I think they just give us a lot of confidence. And I think when that comes from the top down, it makes us basically want to run through a brick wall for them because, we don't want this season to be over just because we have so much fun, but we have so much fun with the coaches as well. And just like I said, that confidence really instills a lot of trust in us and helps us play a lot better.
Max Schaefer, Pseudo Times. Oluchi, obviously you're very familiar with this area. You lived here for a couple years playing for Duke, and you have a lot of experience playing against North Carolina in this gym. How are you going to kind of try to lean on that emotionally and on the court tomorrow just to get you in the right headspace for the game?
Yeah, our coaches have drawn up an amazing game plan, one far better than I could have ever drawn up despite playing them for 2 years. So, it's just sticking to the scouts, sticking to what it is that we have planned in terms of guarding them offensively, how we're going to run our stats. So it's really exciting.
Hi, for Lucci, you lead this team in points right now, but you had 5 players in double-digit points last night. Does having that kind of depth just take some of the pressure off of you going into a tournament game this high level?
Yeah, I'm so incredibly confident in my teammates, and honestly, I think last night just kind of shows our depth and how dangerous we are with so many different people that can step up, especially our freshmen who were so incredibly fearless. It just instills in me a lot of confidence, and it just gets me really excited because, depth is what you need in order to go far in this tournament.
Brady Ruth, Terps. Oluchi, this is a team that's had a lot of success on the road this season. A lot of the quad-run wins, a lot of the best wins have come away from home. So being able to, play in a place where fans can still come down and see you, but you have that road energy, that road routine. How much excitement is there around it and knowing what you've already done this season and being able to add on to that?
Yeah, just with the Big Ten conference in general, it's already rough, and then think about going into their environment. So, I mean, it's built a lot of experience for us, and it's built a lot of trust, which is why, obviously, we've gotten a lot of questions of, don't we wish we were hosting X, Y, and Z, but honestly, we're just so excited to be a part of March Madness, and knowing our success on the court, we have no reason to drop in any levels of our confidence.
Hi, Ben Messinger, Testio Times for Addie. I spoke to you in the preseason about watching last year's round of 32 game against Alabama, being at home, being really excited to get here. Now you're here, you're in the same spot. Can you just talk about your journey and how do you feel about how this season has gone?
Yeah, I think this whole week has honestly been pretty surreal. I'm just so blessed to be in this position. Obviously, like just watching March Madness throughout my whole life. So it's just an awesome feeling to be here now. And obviously getting that first round win, great feeling. But just, staying in the moment and taking one game at a time. I have such great teammates around me that have just really helped me prepare and feel confident and ready to be here. So I'm really excited to just continue on and hopefully continue to push out our season as long as we can.
Tom Shanahan from the News and Observer. I asked the North Carolina players the same question. Us old-timers remember Maryland as an ACC school. Do you guys, for both of you, do you have any awareness of that? And Alucci, at least you know what it's like to play an ACC rival in an NCAA tournament game.
Yeah. So, funny story about that. Obviously, last year when I was playing for Duke and we had Maryland on the schedule, that was the first time I heard about the big rivalry. And I was just like, there was a rivalry? And then everyone kind of looked at me like I was crazy. So, I mean, that's kind of when I got the whole history, not just about Maryland being in the AC, but about their dominance in it. So, yeah, it was funny.
Addie, did you also want to comment?
I mean, I've heard stories that I think there was one time that Maryland played UNC like 4 times in a season. So, I'm really excited just to be down here. And obviously it's a great opportunity for us to, go back, I guess, and bring back that little ACC rivalry. So I'm excited.
Any other questions for student athletes?
Ariel Bottom, Tar Heel Tribune. I remember in Birmingham last season, you were a big reason that Duke beat Carolina. What do you remember about that game, and what is it that you have to do, that you did in that game that you have to do tomorrow?
Yeah, well, for one, I remember the excitement that I was feeling and my team are feeling for having the opportunity to be in the Sweet 16. I think that's something that this team is really chasing and why we're so hungry or starving, like my teammate Mir said yesterday. But, I mean, all I have to do is just keep playing me, keep doing what I'm doing and relying on my teammates, because I really do think that they especially showed yesterday that any, if not multiple of us, are going to step up to get us to where we need to get to.
Carter Braun, USA Today. For both of you guys, I heard in practice today, Coach Freeze said that you respect everyone but fear no one. Has that been a mantra throughout the whole season, or is she starting to say that now just to kind of get you guys rallied?
Addie, can you start us off, and then Alucci?
Obviously, I think, that's just a mindset that we have. I think we've been working so hard this whole season that we have that confidence within ourselves. But obviously, every opponent that you play is a great opponent, and you can't take anyone lightly. And I think that our whole Big Ten schedule has really prepared us for that. So I think just, looking forward into tomorrow, like they are a great opponent, but we know that we are a great team too. So just sticking to our game plan.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a mindset that we had preseason, honestly. Just obviously understanding that, okay, our non-conference schedule is a little lighter, but doesn't matter who we play. Every game is preparing us for the next tough battle, so we shouldn't take it lightly, and we shouldn't take it for granted.
Any other questions for student athletes? All right, seeing none. Ladies, thanks so much for the time, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.
Freeze will join us on stage at 2:35. soon as I get the thumbs up from the back. All right. Good afternoon again, everyone. We're now joined by Maryland head coach Brenda Fries, reminding to the media to please provide your name and media affiliation each time you ask a question. We'll go ahead and open the floor up for questions.
Hey, Coach. Brady Ruth, Terps. You guys have been no stranger to success on the road this season. You've been no stranger to playing in tough environments. What have you learned, and what has the team learned this year about how important it is to start the game hot when you're on the road playing these tough environments?
Yeah, I think that's why your body of work prepares you to go on the road. They know how important it is to be able to set the tone early. I think at this point of the year, everyone knows what the stakes are, and you want to be able to win that game so you can advance. So I know they'll be ready to play tomorrow.
Hey, Coach. Austin Borshak, Terp Talk, WBB. Only 16 schools have ever won a national title, and here 2 of them are going to meet tomorrow with so much history between them. Almost 20 years ago exactly, you met them in the Final Four. Almost 8 years ago to the day, you met them just down the road in Raleigh in the tournament. Obviously, the sport has changed a lot in all those years with conference realignment, NIL, the portal, everything. Can you just speak about the legacy and staying power of both programs despite all those changes?
Yeah, it's incredible, and you go back to our ACC days and all the battles that we had between the 2 teams, and as you've alluded to, and the Final Fours, and both games home and on the road. And I think for both programs to be able to sustain that consistency, it's really hard to do, and especially in the ever-changing landscape that we have now. So, I think it continues to show the support you have, the resources within your administration is vital to have that success as well as, and the trust that they have in the coaches of both programs.
Hey, Coach. Max Schaefer, Pseudo Times. I heard you telling your team today kind of in practice that now's the time you want them to lean more on instinct in games and not be overthinking things. Why do you think that that's kind of the most effective way to approach a high-pressure game like March Madness?
We've just kind of learned the identity of our team, and I think really with any team, I mean, you don't want them when the ball tips to be overthinking anything. That's why you put the practice in and go through the film, so when you tip it off, you're really kind of playing to your identity. I mean, yes, there's a lot of things within game and personnel and scout tendencies and sets, no question, but when you're playing at your highest level, you're kind of humming and you're doing the things at this point of year of what your standard is, and then being able to lock into those tendencies that matter.
Hi, Coach. Ben Messinger, Testudo Times. You and Coach Banghart has some history in the NCAA tournament. I think yesterday she mentioned that you guys knocked her off and her team was undefeated at Princeton, I think. Can you talk about just your relationship with her and just the battles that you've had with her over the years?
Yeah, we really have. We go all the way back to her Princeton days, and this is what I'll say about Courtney, and just a great human being. We spend a lot of time having conversations on the road, but I'll say her teams are always well scouted, really prepared. I'll also say, the committee got it wrong. I think they should have been higher than a 4 seed. It's a typical North Carolina roster. They're loaded, they're deep, they have a ton of pros on that roster. They can play inside and out. They're big, they're strong, they're physical. So I think they should have been a higher seed.
Coach, for Brady with Terps, for some of the Maryland fans that are, really taking a trip down memory lane this week, and this will only be the second time that these 2 programs have ever faced in an NCAA tournament. Obviously, a lot of fun memories from the first one. What do you remember from that 2006 run and just kind of those big games against North Carolina?
Yeah, it is ironic that it's on the heels of the 20th anniversary, and there's no question when you talk about that 06 year and beating them in a Final Four, and for us in the ACC, you couldn't have scripted it any better between playing UNC in the Final Four and then Duke in the championship. But there have been a lot of epic battles. That same year, Ashley Newman hit a buzzer beater when they were ranked number 1 for us to be able to win that game on the road. Same thing when we had Alyssa Thomas that was able to come in here and force with her a buzzer beater layup to be able to send that to overtime for that win. So those battles have gone back all the way when Sylvia Hatchell was here. And, it's just, true ACC battles at that time. But it's exciting now that you're going to get to match up between a Big Ten and an ACC battle.
Carter Braun, USA Today. Coach, you've made the tournament 16 straight times. In 15 of those 16 times, you've made it past the first round. What can you really attribute that success to?
Well, you hope just, again, that level of consistency is by your habits of every single day. And I think for us, we're in tune to our process. We understand it's a marathon, not a sprint. And we want to be peaking in March. I think we do a really good job between a really long season, both physically and mentally, to be able to have our players peaking at the right time.
Max Schaefer, Testudo Times. Coach, I noticed some similarities in the construction kind of the roster between your two teams in that they also kind of have maybe 4 players that can score in double figures on any given night. They're really deep, don't necessarily have a traditional number 1 option. How does that kind of affect the preparation and the scout as you guys get ready to obviously try to slow them down defensively?
Well, I think, like you said, when you watch both teams, you don't know who's going to, I think, when you watched us yesterday, you would have probably tuned into Alucci. And I think you've seen the growth in this team. And like you said, the double-figure scores that we have, having to scout that. And then for UNC, it's the same thing. I mean, I think the beautiful thing is we've seen this in our conference play where we've had to, guard, multiple players that can really score the basketball. And so I think nothing changes in that regard. I think defensively, we just have to continue to be really solid. That's who we've been all season long.
Hi, Ben Messenger, Testudo Times. Yesterday, obviously, you won the first game. North Carolina and Western Illinois played after you. Does that help you at all just to watch the team that you assume you're playing and knowing that you're going to play one of these two teams, being able to be there in person and watch that game?
I think anytime you can, whether it be watched in person, be able to scout, there's so many things that you can be able to pick up a preference. Yeah, I love the fact that after you win a game, then you can be able to start your preparation on whichever team it's going to be. But yeah, I think anytime you have that live action, you can pick things up. And, we were, already prepared as a staff with our different scouts to be ready to play anyone.
Hey, Ariel Bottom, Tar Heel Tribune. Do you miss those old games in Carmichael and those battles with Sylvia Hatchell? What do you remember about those? And also, I noticed you had some crowd noise during your practice. I'm guessing you're expecting to deal with that a lot tomorrow.
Yeah, those were epic battles. I think it's just shifted now. I mean, we have those, same battles now in our conference in the Big Ten. So that's a beautiful thing when you want to be a competitor and you want to play against the best. We get to have that, in our conference. But yeah, so many when I was reflecting on our battles with them. I mean, you talk about Ivory Latta, just how hard she was to contain, especially within that time that she played. Or Elena Larkins, my husband and I, we were joking, had 4 fouls at halftime, and then for some reason never fouled out of a double overtime game down here. So. It was, games that just continued to, and if anyone knows Elena, like she was big and physical and really aggressive. And then you got Sylvia that, was just always unique, great staff that she would have. I mentioned this the other day. One time she left at halftime chasing one of the officials, I think, to get the call right. But she was, always had, like I said, very similar to what Courtney has, just loaded rosters of pros and players going and being able to play inside and outside and having a thread, and very similar to this roster that every single player, they bring up players off their bench and they all can score. So it's a really deep roster.
Any other questions for Coach? All right, Coach, thanks so much for
Thank
the
you.
time, and good luck tomorrow. Hammond Communications will post a recording of this press conference in the NCAA digital